for a lot of movie studios, Netflix was another channel through which you could distribute your movies. But it was more than another channel, because what some of these technologies can do is they can change entire systems of work. And so what happened was that Netflix became, basically so powerful that they restructured the entire content industry and determined what gets made and who gets to watch it. AI-enabled commerce or agentic commerce is a bit of that. And so you've got to really think about how's the value being restructured, who has more power as a result of that, and things like that.
Welcome to the Retail Agentic Podcast, where we explore the intersection of retail, e-commerce, and AI agents, which we call Retail Agentic. Our mission is simple. We are shining a bright light on the new agentic AI shopping megatrend, which will disrupt the trillion-dollar digital retail market. The stakes are high. Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, Perplexity, Amazon, Apple, Meta, and Anthropic are all fighting to be the consumer AI shopping agent winner. There are going to be some tough decisions for online brands and retailers to make. What happens to checkout? How should payments work? Should you continue to invest in retail media networks? What does the world look like when over half of your traffic is not from humans, but from AI agents? These existential questions are the tip of the iceberg. On this podcast, we're talking to industry experts, analysts, and influencers to get answers to these questions, identify trends, and best practices. This is Retail Agentic, your podcast partner in navigating our AI shopping agent future. And now here's your host, Scott Wingo.
Welcome to this episode of Retail Agentic. My guest today is Kartik Hosanagar. Kartik is a Wharton professor, serial entrepreneur, angel investor, Renaissance agentic commercer, and he also runs the Wharton AI Center. In addition to all that, he is also the founder of a company that does AI simulations around AEO GEO called Bodhium. Some of our most popular podcasts here on Retail Agentic feature academics like Kartik that have done a lot of research in the area. And I think you're really going to enjoy my conversation here. It turns out Kartik and I share a lot of the same beliefs and conclusions of where agentic commerce is going, but we come at them from very different angles. And I have more of a gut feeling, and he has a lot of research to back up what he's doing. And it's always really fun and fascinating to explore everyone's different path to their beliefs on agentic commerce. He spends a lot of time talking to companies about it as well. He recently gave a keynote over at CommerceNext with our friends there. And I don't want to spoil any more of the conversation, so I'm going to pause here and let you enjoy my conversation with Kartik. Welcome to this episode of Retail Agentic. My guest today is Kartik Hosanagar. He is a serial founder, professor at Wharton, angel investor, and a PhD from Carnegie Mellon. Kartik, welcome to the show.
Scott, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're a Renaissance man. I was researching, and I was like, wow, the background section of this is going to take an hour on its own. You've been very busy.
Or unfocused, depending on how you look at it.
No, there is a theme. There's a common theme in there. And I'm surprised we haven't met. We've come close a couple times in there, which we'll hit on. But in your own, that was like some of the highlights. How, when you're at a cocktail party, how do you tell folks about your background and what you're up to now?
Yeah, look, I've been an academic and an entrepreneur for the last 25 years, roughly. So as an academic, I'm a professor at the Wharton School. I run our AI Center as well there. And as an entrepreneur, I was previously a co-founder of a company called Yodle, which was AI applied to online marketing. More recently, I'm a co-founder of Bodhium Labs, which is an applied AI startup, which is also focused on using AI to improve marketing. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit. Other than that, I've been an author of a book called A Human's Guide to Machine Intelligence and an angel investor in a few dozen startups.
It's funny, my daughter wanted to watch Silicon Valley, so I haven't seen that in a very long time. So I was watching it, and as I was preparing for the show, they had the episode where they're at TechCrunch Disrupt, and every pitch is so low-mo. Do you remember that? And it made me think of that Yodle Milo era when you guys were in the mix of you kind of had to be mobile, social, and local. And you guys were always, you had two companies that played in there.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yodle was a local search. And then Milo, where I was an advisor, I was a local and mobile kind of player. So, yes, I guess, I haven't seen Silicon Valley in a while, but they have good parodies on what's going on.
It still really lands. It's pretty good. It's pretty funny. And the AI are a lot of it's funny. Like there's one where Guilfoyle's AI goes crazy and orders like it's supposed to save money on hamburgers, but it orders like a pallet of hamburger meat. so it's kind of funny. They were very predictive about a lot of things in our world today.
A lot of things indeed. I remember the one episode where this guy's in a driverless car, but the driverless car won't let him out and takes him into a ship.
A container. Yeah. Milo was interesting. So I had Channel Advisor, and we worked with them to get the local inventory out and then publish it before they were acquired by eBay. And then Fidji ran that when she was at eBay. So it's kind of funny. She's now like the head of all the consumer stuff at OpenAI, as you probably know.
Yeah, very cool.
So tell us, let's start at the academic side. What are some interesting things that you're thinking about at Wharton, and what does the AI Center do?
At the school, really, there's a lot of things AI related that we think about. Everything from what do our students need to know in an AI era where it's unclear what will be the skills of the future. So how do we redesign our curriculum around AI? What are the AI skills we need to impart to our students? Our center itself is a bit more research focused, so we support faculty research on these topics. Personally, I'm focused on a few different themes. One area is around designing human AI collaboration. Another area is on AI search and how people are moving from typing 3-4 keywords on Google to having really long essays and conversations with ChatGPT and Gemini, and how that's changing search in general, but in particular from a business perspective, how does it change shopping in particular, and how people discover products and brands and things like that. So yeah, these are a couple themes that I'm personally focused on.
And that is why you're on the podcast. This is a podcast that's exclusively about that. So what are your thoughts? You had a post kind of back in January that was pretty early on with some pretty interesting thinking around. I think in that post, the crux of it was talking about the retailer hosted answer engines. So back then it was Rufus and Sparky. Now it's Alexa for shopping, which is much more of a mouthful. But walk through your thesis there, and then maybe update it for modern times, which is, I know it's only July, but things change so fast.
Yeah, look, I think there's many layers to peel there, but at a high level, I would say my thesis is that any retailer or brand that's thinking about AI search as merely another channel that customers are using to discover the brands are missing the big story, because these systems are more than another channel through which they discover your brand, but increasingly people are outsourcing a lot of the thinking to these AI engines. And so, for example, previously you'd go type a Google query and get like 10, 20 results, click on a bunch of them, discover a bunch of brands, synthesize that information, make sense of it all. You might buy in one place, but you did all the top of the funnel work yourself. You discovered a bunch of brands and so on. Even if you bought from one, you discovered many others. Now, increasingly, that is being outsourced to AI. So what a customer used to do on their own is being done by AI, and the consideration set formation is done by AI. And so people come in much later in the funnel. So discovery is fundamentally transformed. And as these things become more agentic, and we know the AI labs are spending a lot of money on trying to create agents that can do shopping for people. Once it becomes more agentic, we should start thinking about AI is almost as a new customer category itself. And so you have to ask, just like with your customers, you ask, how do we inform these customers? How do I persuade these customers? We think about what influences these customers. You need to ask the same question about agents, which is in things like, how do we persuade AI? What drives AI decision making? What biases do AI have? We understand $9.99 is different than $10 for humans. Is that true for AI or not? We don't know. So these kinds of things. So we need a new thinking and a new discipline to think about like AI decision making as it relates to commerce.
Yeah, one of the debates we commonly have on this show is the definition of agentic commerce. So there's a set of people that they have a very strict definition that agentic commerce has to be totally hands off the keyboard. Kartik wakes up, says, "I need a new shirt," and the machine just goes and does it without any input. I'm in the camp of I kind of have a bigger tent where if you're using it anywhere along the journey, I kind of count it. But where do you fall on that spectrum of the definition of agentic commerce?
I'm fully with you. For me, the analogy I would use is that of driverless cars. So with driverless cars, we talk about level 0, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. And level 5 is where you don't even need a steering wheel in the car. You can sit at the back and the car takes you wherever. And that's the goal of many companies. But that doesn't mean if you're sitting in a Tesla, you're not in a driverless car, or rather in an autonomous vehicle. So I think there are levels to it. So yes, you can have a true agentic level 5 commerce where you kind of just say into your phone, "Hey Siri, I'm looking to buy a shoe under $100 for my half marathon coming up next weekend. Figure it out, buy it, order it, and make sure it arrives in a week." And then it does the rest. But that doesn't mean that you cannot have intermediate things. And in fact, the path to level 5 agentic is going to involve these steps along the way. I feel level 1 is even things like Instacart, where you can have a lot of automation around your ordering. And level two for me is AI enabled discovery, where you can go in and ask questions to ChatGPT, and it'll give you the short list, and it'll explain, here are the 4 brands of shoes I recommend. Here's why, and based on all these factors, this is the one that's right for you. And then you can, of course, go further down the funnel and ask, can you do AI checkout? And does a human need to be involved for approval? And so on. And you can build that out. But I'm with you that just because something is not end to end AI enabled doesn't mean that we haven't begun the agentic commerce era.
And then, what do you think about where the answer engines are today? So we've got Gemini there's kind of a UCP group forming, and there's actually like a consortium. It's probably not the right word, but a council and stuff. Number one, a lot of people were surprised Amazon joined that, so no one really knows exactly what they're doing. Are they gonna publish out to UCP, or are they just gonna ingest it? And so would love to hear your thoughts on UCP, and then we'll go to the next one. What do you think about UCP and Gemini and all that?
So UCP, or Universal Commerce Protocol, is basically Google's big initiative so that agents can talk to each other and do all the things that are involved in commerce. One of those basic things is even exchange product feed and product information. And so, for example, a merchant that decides, "Hey, I'm going to make my catalog available in a UCP compliant manner," will make it super easy for any other agent to use UCP to read a product catalog and pull it in. So, for example, Shopify, among others, are kind of saying, "Hey, Shopify merchants will make them UCP enabled, so anyone can pull their product catalog information in and make it available on any AI engine that decides to follow UCP." Of course, Gemini being one of them, but could be anyone else. So it's an open standard. Somebody else could also build an AI discovery platform and use UCP. Even though they're not Google, they can use UCP to pull the product feeds, right? So there's that piece. Then there's the whole, can you transact with it? Can you pay with it? And so on. And UCP gets into those pieces as well. And those are where we get speculative about, like, hey, will people want to transact with AI without any human intervention? And we've seen OpenAI launched Agentic Commerce Protocol, or ACP, and it's still around mostly from a product feed exchange perspective. But they've backed off on the instant checkout, where they were saying anyone can check out on OpenAI, and OpenAI's agent will talk to the merchant's agent and finish the transaction. And that hasn't played out. I think it's going to take some time before agentic checkout and agentic payments are a reality. But that's kind of the vision of Google. And coming to your point about Amazon, it's unclear what their strategy is. I think the one thing that's pretty clear is they don't want to be in a world where agentic transactions are happening on other platforms like OpenAI and Google, because then OpenAI and Google start to have disproportionate influence on purchases happening within Amazon. And so historically, they've resisted uh, crawlers from OpenAI and Google from coming and scraping their site and pulling product information. And they've launched Rufus, and their entire bet has been Rufus, which is their agent for commerce and so on. And their strategy has been very unlike Walmart. And Walmart has said, oh, yeah, we'll do ACP, we'll do UCP, we'll have our own agent, Sparky, but we'll go ahead and make it available on those other channels as well. So now for Amazon to say we'll be on UCP, I have a feeling they just want to know what's going on there. They're kind of testing the waters. I don't think it's a reversal of their strategy. They're testing the waters and they're trying to make sure they're informed about what's happening in that camp. But their strategy to me seems to be, we want any agentic transactions happening through our own AI agents. So anyone who wants to do agentic commerce, come on Rufus and do it there. And we own things end to end. I believe that's their strategy.
You have your academic side and then your professional side, and then you have Bodhium. And tell us a little bit about that.
Bodhium, as I mentioned, is an applied AI lab. And we are trying to solve a few different questions around AI-enabled commerce. And the first one that we've tackled is a market that is, sometimes referred to as AI engine optimization or AEO or generative engine optimization or G. And what we found in that space is that brands are interested in understanding what they can do to make sure that they can inform AI engines about their product offerings well, and also persuade those AI engines that they have the right product for the right customer. And today, what's happening in that space is it's all guesswork. And there's dozens of companies in the space, and all of them do the same thing. They will take your brand and they will come up with 200, 300, 400 questions that your customers may potentially be asking about your product category on OpenAI or on Claude or Gemini. And they will tell you whether you show up in the answers to those questions and whether your competitors show up in the answers. So, for example, they will inform Nike, hey, if somebody says I'm running a half marathon and I need a shoe that is good and has strong ankle support, do you show up? Or is it your competitors? I'm wearing a Hoka right now, so does Hoka instead dominate that? And things like that. But what are you supposed to do if you feel like you have a right to win that answer, but you don't show up? And nobody knows the answer to that question. And everyone says, oh, why don't you create more content? Why don't you create more blog posts and see what happens? That's like throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks. And it doesn't quite work.
Or my favorite is go start a discussion about your brand on Reddit. Yeah, that's kind of crazy talk.
I hate that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Everyone always pushes the Reddit. Yeah.
Pretend you're a real Reddit user and start, hyping up your brand and all of that.
Yeah, some of it gets really sketchy pretty fast. Very, very gray hat, to be generous. Yeah.
We kind of said, look, I think there's an opportunity to build something that is research-led. My co-founder was previously at DeepMind for the last 6.5 years, has been in search for the last 20 plus years. And we kind of said, look, I think the interesting thing is that these AI models can be probed, meaning you can interpret their answers. You can ask, why is the answer what it is? And if you can interpret them, then you can start to ask, hey, what might happen if I did this? Or what might happen if I did that? And so we're building a platform where you can run what we call counterfactual simulations, where basically we create virtual worlds where in each virtual world, your website looks different. And so our AI agents create a new virtual world where there's a new website a new look and feel. And we test various hypotheses in the virtual world, where we'll have a digital twin of, say, ChatGPT, and we'll ask, what might the answer on ChatGPT be if your content looked not like A but like B? And through a series of these tests that can run in a matter of minutes or hours, we can discover, having tried 1,000 different hypotheses, we might discover one or two where the AI answer is more accurate, more favorable to your brand. And in that, we kind of identify how you present your information on your website, so it influences AI. It's not unlike market research, where you might test with a bunch of customers and you'd ask them, hey, which one do you like better, this messaging or that messaging? But we test that with AI, and we kind of give you the information on what's going to work or not. And that's our first product. And over time, we'll expand it to other things broadly in the space. At the end of the day, if you can understand AI answers and have interpretability and explanations around AI answers, then you can do a lot of things around it.
Kind of back to the front part. Well, another thing I think the GEO companies do a disservice is they kind of want it to look like SEO, and they want it to look like the keyword era. So they make it seem like they're still ahead and tail distribution curve. And I'm pretty convinced that doesn't exist anymore, because I think every customer journey is essentially long tail. People aren't using these answer engines to just kind of say men's running shoes anymore. Some of them maybe, but once the user gets pretty sophisticated, they're having a multi-turn conversation. And many of the conversations, if you look at the OpenAI papers, the conversation is, I'm taking a trip to somewhere, and then somewhere in there it says, oh, if you're going to go hiking, you need to think about this kind of kit. And then conversation turn number 7 is shoes. So it's very different than the keyword era. Do you guys have any evidence that supports that, or it seems like you're simulating kind of merchant back, not consumer down?
Yeah, we're simulating merchants, but in the process of that, we have to simulate customer behavior as well. So we have to simulate customer personas who have a job to be done, who will have a multi-turn conversation with LLMs and so on. The one thing we can say is that you're spot on. The conversations are not men's running shoes. So in fact, I recently presented my keynote at the CommerceNext conference, where I was talking about the fact that the search queries have gone from 4 words on average on Google to 60 words on the first turn or the first chat on ChatGPT. And then you get the answer, then you ask another question, another follow-up, and so on. And what's happening is exactly what you said, which is people are moving from high-level top of funnel to late funnel completely on the AI platform. And the consideration set is formed on the AI platform through a multi-turn conversation. And the conversation, well, I'll stick to the running shoe analogy. The conversation starts with, excuse me, I am running a half marathon in a few weeks. What should I do to prepare for it? And in there will be suggestions like your training regimen in preparation for it, suggestions around your diet in the days leading up to the half marathon, suggestions around electrolytes, suggestions around running shoes, and so on. And then different people will have different subsequent questions. Someone in there would say, oh, tell me more about what do I need in a running shoe? And then they might say, oh, I do not currently, or they might say, my current running shoe is whatever. It's a Nike, it's one of the Jordans. What do you think? Can I run with that? And then it might say, no, that's not good for a half marathon. Then you might say, oh, what do I need in a running shoe for the half marathon? And which is the best brand? So as you were saying, it's like much later in the conversation. And so really for brands, it's a completely new world where you have to think about, how do I educate AI about what products I have, where I'm relevant, how to insert my brand at the right point in the conversation with the customer. And so that requires much more than here's my PDP, and here's an FAQ on the product itself.
What else? Any other interesting takeaways from the CommerceNext talk that you did? Since it's probably fresh. That was like last week, I think. So it's probably fresh in your mind.
Yeah. I think a few things came up in there. We had some conversations around like what are some misconceptions that uh, retailers and brands often have when it comes to AI, and a few came up. One was something we talked about, which is AI is another channel. And I talked a little bit about why that is potentially harmful. And it's correct, it's an AI channel, but it's dangerous because it's incomplete. And the analogy I gave them was for a lot of movie studios, Netflix was another channel through which you could distribute your movies. But it was more than another channel because what some of these technologies can do is they can change entire systems of work. And so what happened was that Netflix became uh, basically so powerful that they restructured the entire content industry and determined who gets what gets made and who gets to watch it. And so I was kind of highlighting that AI enabled commerce or agentic commerce is a bit of that. And so you've got to really think about how's the value being restructured, who has more power as a result of that, and things like that. The other thing that came up is also this idea that you have to start thinking about AI as a customer as well. And so, this idea that there will always be a human at the other end, you've got to question that. Um, as we were talking about this movement towards this level 5 automation, and then ask, okay, if AI is the customer, what do I know about influencing AI? That's the other piece that came up.
Have you done any research on trust, shopper trust with AI? Is that an area of interest to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think when it comes to shopper trust with AI, the evidence is that when it comes to discovery, there is a lot of trust today. Um, I think people, you ask them about, do you know AI can hallucinate? They are aware, but the reduction in search cost, the time saving is so significant that they're willing to accept the occasional hallucination and do a lot of their research there. Trust when it comes to full automation and checking out on AI systems is not quite there. People still want to click through, visit the merchant website. And so when it comes to the full agentic commerce vision, I think there is a big trust gap today. And people are not yet ready to do anything late funnel, like certainly not outsource the final decision to AI, certainly not do it in a no human mode today. And also when it comes to payments and things like that, there is some reluctance. But otherwise, all the trends are discovery, trust is very high.
What are any other areas of interest there for you?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're also seeing is that AI can certainly presents a new interesting opportunity for brands where if you're early and you play the AI visibility game well, then you could show up and be a prominent brand in AI search results. But we also see some interesting challenges where you cannot fully control what AI thinks about you. So, two examples: we had an e-commerce retailer from London who was, asking us, help us understand what AI thinks about our brand and so on. And we kind of told them after an analysis, AI thinks you've shut down. Um, and then they were surprised, and we talked about it, and we were like, well, here's what AI is saying that your brand shut down. And then they kind of said, oh, the history is that the previous owner of the brand was struggling financially, and they decided to put the brand up for sale, and we bought the brand. But then there is some discussion online that their stores might be shutting down because they were financially distressed. And these conversations in the community that the stores might be shutting down was sufficient for AI to believe that it's shutting down. And so while ChatGPT thought highly of the brand, it would not recommend the brand because it was thinking it was going to shut down. Another example was a wallet company that um, became a top recommendation for like best gifts for men, top wallet recommendation for searches around like things like gifts for men and so on. But AI was also giving wrong information about promotions they have and so on. And that information was coming from discussions online. And so we were talking about Reddit earlier. It is true that you cannot fully control your brand narrative, and these long form answers are determined partly by what you release on your website, partly by what media third party media property release on their websites, and partly by what the community discusses. And so I think we're in an interesting era where companies have to think more holistically about all of the three. But it's not sufficient to say, we'll create some Reddit profiles and post about our brand. It's got to be a much more responsible engagement with the community.
What do you think are the big, what should brands be doing today? Like what's some of the actionable things that they can do to make sure that AI is picking them and that it's not making these kind of crazy recommendations?
Yeah, so in the keynote, we spent some good period of time talking about what like a 12-month roadmap for AI could look like. And one of the things I was kind of emphasizing in that keynote was that that we need to think about like what are you already doing today, and if you aren't, you should be doing it this week. What are the things that we should be um, doing this quarter, and then what are the things we should be doing, say, this year? And so I'll break it up into these three buckets. So in terms of what are the things you should be doing right now, at a very basic level, you should be fully understanding what are the types of conversations your customers are having on these LLMs. Secondly, who shows up, which is the AI visibility analysis. Do we show up? Do our competitors show up? And where do we show up? What are our strengths and weaknesses? We do well with wallets, but we don't do well in, let's say, we also sell hats and tech gadgets. We don't do well in those categories. So understanding our areas of strengths and weaknesses. Which bots are visiting our website? How frequently do they visit our website? What are they actually reading on our website? So what are the bots looking for? And by bots, I'm specifically interested in the AI engines like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. And every time a user searches something on the site, they will have agents called user agents visiting, retail properties and brands' websites to look for information. So what are they actually discovering? What are they trying to read? So that should be done right now. I think this quarter, I would ask every company to be really thinking about interpretability and explanations on, now that you've done an audit, why do we not show up? What what will happen if we make certain kinds of changes? Every company is being told several suggestions like, hey, you need to have an FAQ, you need to have information presented in the form of tables, your blog format should be a headline, question, and an answer, and then the rest of the blog, and lots of things, right? Your schema should look different, your PDP should look different, and so on. So there's a lot of hypotheses. So within this quarter, you should go from these random guesswork type of hypothesis, he said, she said type of hypothesis, to creating simulation environments where you're able to test these strategies. So you should have your own simulator of ChatGPT, your own simulator of Gemini, and you should be able to test these hypotheses. And by the end of the quarter, you should know which ones are working for you, which ones are not working for you. And that's going to be important. And so you have to do that this quarter. And by, I think, the next 12 months is going to be about scaling what I'm just describing. So how do you bring in agentic workflows where agents can analyze your visibility data, agents can come up with hypotheses of changes, agents can use the LLM simulators to test the hypothesis and come to you with recommendations on, make these changes, here's why, and here's what I expect will happen. And that's how you can scale this. And if any company can pull this off in a year, I feel you'll be miles ahead, and you'll be also improving your AI visibility and your AI game so rapidly relative to your competitors who will still be playing the let's throw spaghetti on the wall and hope something sticks kind of game.
So that's the answer engines. Does this kind of count for the retailer kind of hosted engines as well for Rufus and Sparky? Should you do the same kind of thing?
Yeah, sorry. And I think on the Rufus and Sparky side, I think my version of that would be today, as I said, look at which bots are visiting your site. What are they doing? This quarter, have a some sort of a team in your company that is looking into UCP and looking into how do we make sure our product feed, for example, is UCP compatible, and so we can submit our product feed to various engines on UCP. Or if you're on Shopify, how do we leverage Shopify's UCP capabilities to make sure our product feeds are fed to the engines that are looking for our product information. I would also look at like an MCP endpoint this quarter. So MCP is essentially another protocol for agents to go and fetch information. So an MCP endpoint would be a way for agents to come, instead of visiting your pages, coming to your MCP endpoint and understanding your product information, your brand information, and getting it there. So those are the kinds of things I would investigate. I think it's too soon to say that there'll be agentic transactions, but I think at a minimum you need to do that. And if you're selling on Amazon, you're selling on Walmart, you need to have a Rufus work stream as well. So understanding how we show up for popular queries on Rufus, what are the things we can do to influence Rufus. So it's a very similar, what can we do today, what can we do this quarter, what do we do this year, but translating that to Rufus, UCP, and MCP would be how I think about that in the agentic sense.
How about so that's kind of the tactical view. Let's look forward a little bit. There's a lot of forecasts out there that say by 2030, agentic commerce will be somewhere between 15 and 25% of e-commerce. I get excited more by that's just kind of swapping things across buckets. There are some forecasts that show this accelerating e-commerce. Do you think agentic commerce accelerates e-commerce and its adoption rate? And then where do you think this is all going?
I think of agentic commerce as essentially reducing a lot of friction for customers and for shopping. And so once you reduce frictions, you would expect some level of increase in buying activity, meaning people actually either have an interest in buying something, but they can't find it, or it's just too time consuming to go discover that. They're not aware of something that they could actually use. So yes, there's going to be some level of increase. But to me, the analogy is similar to e-commerce reducing frictions. And the primary impact of e-commerce was taking away share from physical commerce towards e-commerce. And yes, there is some increase as well. So pie did grow a lot. But the more significant impact was that of taking share away from traditional commerce. I would view agentic commerce the same way. Yes, there will be some increase in the pie because it made things more frictionless, but the primary impact and the bigger impact will be that of what share of commerce was taken away that might have happened in more traditional digital ways like search and discovery in the usual manner versus agentic ways. But I think the agentic lower friction leads to more purchases is a real possibility as well.
There's a set of people that kind of are in this camp where, well, maybe you don't really need websites at the end of the day. If these agents are like just crawling your website, wouldn't it be more efficient to just have agent-to-agent communications? Do you see that as an endpoint here, or will humans always want to get to a website and poke around on their own?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit like, stores haven't gone away. Stores are still there. And websites are still there. And in fact, you look at companies like Warby Parker that started as pure e-commerce companies. They have doubled down on their store strategy. And what they've realized is, there are some people who only shop on stores, some people who only shop online. And by the way, there are omni-channel shoppers. And actually, opening stores increases online sales, and online website increases store sales. And omni-channel shoppers like both. I think it's going to be like that. Let's say agentic commerce takes off by 2030, as many are projecting and predicting, which is definitely in the realm of possibilities. It really takes off. I don't think the website goes away, There's going to be some people who are going to use websites and shop on their own. There are going to be some people who will use agents to do the work, and they will need a separate front door. I don't think a website is the right front door for an agent. And that's why I was talking about MCP endpoints, where you have a separate front door for agents that can come in and don't have to transact and use a browser the way we do. And you might have to have two separate front doors. And you might discover there are some omni-channel people, the equivalent of omni-channel people, where sometimes the website helps feed the agentic store, and sometimes the agentic store feeds the website, because there is going to be some human AI collaboration as well, where people will ask agents to do certain pieces, but then come in for certain other pieces, and vice versa. So I think there's going to be room for both front doors. I don't see the regular web front door disappearing.
Cool. If people want to learn more about your research and kind of your thoughts, where obviously you're pretty easy to find on LinkedIn and you're pretty active there, where else should they look?
Yeah, I think I would say first and foremost LinkedIn. I'm, as you said, quite active there, and I share my opinions and thoughts on this space and on AI and business in general over there. I also run a newsletter / blog, which is on Substack. So you can go to my last name, Hosanagar, HOSANAGAR.substack.com. And that is the link to my Substack. And that's where I also have long form posts on these. So sometimes I will do quick posts on LinkedIn, but sometimes I'll feel like, hey, this one deserves like a much longer one. So once a month, I'll do a longer post on Substack. And so that's the other place where they can find out about my work and my thoughts on these topics.
Yeah, we'll put a link to that in the show notes as well as your LinkedIn. And I'm an avid reader, and that's how I knew to reach out to you. So I really appreciate you putting your thoughts out there.
Thank you very much. I appreciate anyone who is taking the time and the trouble to read these longer posts. I appreciate that.
I've been called an agentic commerce maximist. So it's part of my job description now to read everything that people put out.
That's a great choice you made, because I'm very bullish on these trends. And like we discussed, even if level 5 automation doesn't happen, there's no doubt in my mind there's a lot of agentic automation in commerce happening. And we should all increase our understanding of this space.
Thanks for coming on, and good luck in all of your many endeavors.
Scott, thanks so much for having me.
Follow, rate, and share to stay up to date with Retailgenic, your guide to the future of AI shopping agents.